All right, everybody. I've got another very special guest for you all. I want everybody to please welcome to the show, Sebastian Piccione. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thanks. It feels like I've been here multiple times.
It's almost like we did this before. Uh,
I have deja vu.
boys and girls, when you want to create a podcast, technical difficulties are your friend. You just got to embrace them. So, Sebastian, as I said in the first recording, big fan of what you guys have been doing over at Summit Comics, and I remember when stuff was getting announced when they talked about Cobalt Cricket, and I saw what you were doing. I was really excited for it. Like it looks like a really cool project, so I'm excited to get into it with you about that. But before we do, I want to kind of lay a groundwork for our conversation. Kind of your how you got into comics, and what made you want to make them, that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, first, thanks for your interest in my bright blue bug boy. Um, and as for comics, my dad and my brother used to go to a baseball card and comic book show. I'm not a sports guy. They wanted me to connect. I feel my mother pressured them. So they dragged me in. And because they were like, well, you don't like sports, but you like superheroes. You watch cartoons all the time. I was like 12. Not that I don't watch cartoons now, but, you know, just to
That's
preface.
last night for me, man.
Yeah, I was watching anime like an hour ago. Um, but, uh, but yeah, so I went in. I bought the Amazing Spider-Man number 65 because it had a cool cover, Escape Impossible. It's Spider-Man running along, John Romita Spidey running along a prison wall, getting chased by everybody. And from there, I was hooked. But little did I know that if you make the mistake of starting with Spider-Man and suddenly you're like, oh, he's got, Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. And I'm old. Web of Spider-Man was not a book yet, but Marvel Team Up was, which suddenly introduced me to all the rest of them. It was like a gateway drug for comic collecting. They're like, "Oh, you like Spider-Man, do you? Well, today he's gonna meet he's gonna meet Nightcrawler, and tomorrow, next month he's gonna meet, Captain Marvel, and then all these characters I'd never heard of. And if they had a book, suddenly I'm like, oh, well, I read the X-Men now because Spidey and them teamed up, or oh, I read Daredevil now because and. I fought pretty hard on DC Comics, mostly because that was what my dad liked. He was a big fan of the original Flash and Superman, really the original Superboy. He had a lot of Superboy comics. Um, but then in the 80s, at the comic store I used to go to and would eventually work at, I got a promo pin in my bag when I bought my books that week that said, "Go for the gold, Booster Gold." And it was a DC comic that started at number one and my dad had never heard of. And that was my doorway in. And then, eventually the Wahaha Justice League happened, and I met Blue Beetle and found out he was created by Steve Ditko, who started Spidey, and I worked backwards and forwards, and then I was hooked. As far as creating them, as early as second grade, I had one of those teachers who, was late 70s, early 80s, must have been like 1979, 1980, who, she was like, we got all these boys with excess energy. She would just let us take paper and we would fold it in half and she'd staple it for us. And then we would draw, now that they looked like little books, we would draw our own comics. Mostly based on stuff we didn't understand. We were too young to see horror movies, but we all had older siblings, cousins, aunts, and uncles who watched them. So we drew comics about, we drew Jaws comics and Friday the 13th. We had no idea what actually happened in those movies, but we knew, oh, there's a shark and there's a guy in a mask and they can do stuff. And then I was hooked, and I really thought, like in my high school yearbook, it says, that in 10 years I would be writing and drawing the Justice League of America. I got an art degree, but then I found out I hate drawing backgrounds and people in normal clothes. So instead I made friends with artists and said, hey, what if I come up with really weird shit and you draw it? And that's worked out pretty well. And now here I am. For a while I was doing stuff on my own. Then life kind of happened and I fell out. And then Summit Comics publisher and whatever other title he slaps on that week, Travis Gibb, He's local, and when we were both talking about writing at our local comic store, um, the owner kind of shoved us together, and periodically, um, Travis doesn't like slacking, even uh, even if it's not his. He doesn't like waste, and wasted time and wasted talent are two of his main things. So he'll come over and like beat me like a rug, dust me off, shake me out, and say, "You need to write a 2-page backup, or you need to write a 6-page piece for this." And he gets me back in, and now here I am.
Yeah, Travis is good at that. I get those texts all the time too. So it was always. It seems like it was always kind of your goal to want to do superhero stuff. I mean, when you were making stuff prior to Summit, were you doing a lot of superhero writing?
The first thing I did was a zombie story. In I forget. I used to be on. I used to lurk on digital webbing, and I used to some of the comic news sites. For a while in the early 2000s, there were comic news sites were everywhere. And I worked for a couple doing like articles and reviews. The reviews were great because I got to, it's like, oh, how would you like to talk to Dan Jurgens? Here's his studio. I'm like, oh, sure. The guy who created the first book that got me into DC Comics. Sure, I'll call this hero and try and act like I'm not starstruck and fumble my way through questions. When really all I want to see is, you made Booster Gold and I love you, thank you. So I started meeting all these people in the background who like wanted to do stuff. And at one point, a couple of them started saying, hey, how would you like to do this? Or how would you like to do that? So I did a story called With a Whimper in an anthology called Dead Future. And I was teamed up with an artist from Portugal, Martino Duarte Abreu, or just Martin Abreu, when he's trying to save the world per letter. And he and I have stayed in touch because it was my first published story and his first published art. So we've stayed, and we periodically will fall in and do something together just because we each feel like we owe half of our start to the other. Um, and he's fast. He is, I don't know, maybe Portugal's just not that big, and he works out and he draws, and I'm sure he does other things. I think he's so fast he does it at the same time. He's got one arm doing curls, and on the other hand, he's just drawn 3 pages. He designs 3 pages before I've even finished writing them, and then we'll make changes. So we teamed up a couple times, but yeah, I've done zombie, I've done horror, I've done sci-fi. I did some superhero stuff on my own. I have a character called Cat 5, short for Category 5. From when I first moved to Florida, I didn't know anything about Florida. So I was like, oh, I'll make a Florida-based hero. What does Florida have? Well, they have hurricanes. And then I, looked up, well, what does Florida have that could make a good villain? And I came up with the Bull Shark. My friend Mikey from back in New York draws those. And a lot of times I work with artists who already know the way my brain works or doesn't work, depending on your point of view. So when I described, I'm like, I want this villain called the Bull Shark. He goes, so one of those shark men, like, King Shark or, Hammerhead or whatever. I'm like, yeah. He goes, but because you're the Bull Shark, you want him to have horns? I'm like, obviously. He's like, that ring in the nose? I'm like, you know it? So I have this like 7-foot shark man with like longhorn, steer horns and a ring in his nose that fights a woman with hurricane powers. And then, yeah, I've done. I think I've done everything but slice of life at this point, which is funny because that's one of my favorite anime genres. But I'm not 100% certain how to come at that yet from a writing standpoint. And then Travis had me do. I did a backup in the first issue of what's the one? Voodoo Nation, and then from there I've done a couple for the Cthulhu Invades. I did Cthulhu Invades, not the first one. I wasn't in Oz. but I did Cthulhu Invades Wonderland with my friend Carl Moline, who passed a couple years back. He used to draw real comics. He wasn't like me pretending. He was drawing over at Marvel and DC and whatnot, and we've become friends. So he drew two of my Cthulhu stories, the Wonderland and the Neverland, where everybody, when Travis announced he was doing Neverland, everybody's like, well, I want Tinkerbell, I want Captain Hook, I want the crocodile. And I'm like, no. I'm like, while they're all fighting, I'm like, Travis, I want Peter Pan's shadow. That, I think, would be a fun story. Just Peter Pan's shadow versus Cthulhu. And he gave me that, and Carl drew it beautifully. And then, but superheroes are where my heart lives. So that's how I ended up at Summit. The Summit origin, of course, is a bunch of guys in Travis's Discord talking about how hard superhero stuff was on Kickstarter and how they, what if we change that? What if we all team up? I'm in that group, but they're active a lot in there, and mostly they're arguing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're even arguing about shit they agree on. I don't know. So I had muted it a long time ago, and then at a signing, I'll look in periodically, but if I left it unmuted, that's all my phone was just, someone posted in the Discord. So I was like, nah, I'm good. But then at a signing for one of the Cthulhu books, Travis and Brian Wolf, who I've also known for 20 years separately from Travis. And then I don't know if Brian loves me or hates me, because I suggested, when one of the times Travis was letting more people in, I was like, well, this guy's great. You should put him in there. And he did. And now I don't know if Brian even sleeps anymore or knows what his family looks like. Brian is he's always drawing something or making videos or doing marketing or whatever for Summit. And I know one day he's going to remember Seb did this, and he's going to come for me. But yeah, they came up to me and they were like, we're doing this thing. And Travis was like, superheroes are kind of your wheelhouse. Maybe you should, he goes, I can put you in. Don't worry about that. I'll just add you to the group. But, you can, see what you can come up with. And basically everybody there's younger than me, because everybody on Earth is younger than me. So they were all like doing comics with a theme of around when they came into them, which is a lot of 90s-esque stuff. So my old ass was like, hey, I'll do something more, silver, bronze, 80s kind of feel. And I came up with, my Bright Blue Bug Boy, because when your favorite characters are like, Blue Beetle, the Ted Cord Blue Beetle, and Spider-Man, you automatically default to, sarcastically quipping bug-themed superheroes. And crickets didn't seem to have a lot of other insects, and arthropods and arachnids are all, there's a whole verse full of spiders. We've seen every color scorpion and, and beetle and whatever. So I went with the cricket. And turns out, a lot of people say, that, when they saw the things that, he sort of stood out. And, I'm colorblind. I like those bright primary colors. So this guy dressed as a cricket in all blue with a, I like to try and say that that I'm doing a, Silver Age vibes with a modern sensibility. Although I'm not sure how much sensibility of any kind I have, but yeah. And then a friend of mine and Travis's that also lives local, Gambit, Elias Gambit Melendez, he does the art, and he's another one who's known me long enough that I don't have to get into the full. He already knows what the hell I'm thinking when I say certain things, and I love this man. No matter how stupid an idea I throw at him, he makes it look so good. Like I have one of my villains is a sentient sand trap from a golf course, because Florida has lots of golf courses. and he just went to town and he put. I was like, I don't know, think like Marvel Sandman, but in like a golf shirt, and he looks like before he got turned into this, he was kind of some douchey rich guy who played golf when he should have been doing more important things. And Jim was like, okay, I know exactly who that looks like. And he put him in this hot pink golf shirt. People are like, I love the pink. I'm like, that's all Gambit. I just said golf shirt. He decided all that. I have a guy based on a lionfish, and I said, but make him look like a real lion, but with those lionfish, venomous quill fins. And Gambit's like, oh yeah, no, I got you. I know what you mean. And I'm like, why would anyone know what that means? But he did, and it's beautiful. And as long as he's willing to keep drawing whatever stupidity falls out of my head, I'm willing to keep throwing stupidity at him.
Yeah, so this show I've been doing before we could ever get guests on. I've been doing for 10, 11 years now. So before most of these people were on Kickstarter, and I remember when we first started, it was like, well, we need to have this segment and this segment to fill time. One of them was, we call it the shitty villain of the week. And it was our loving tribute to those just like weird villains that, like, what was, I'm going to forget a bunch of them now, but that's where we discovered Codpiece and Obnoxio the Clown. And I'm forgetting the one that just snorted cocaine and got superpowers.
Oh, Snowflame.
Snowflame. So when you posted this on Kickstarter, or when it launched on Kickstarter, that was the first thing that came to mind. I was like, I love Sandtrap. Like, it's exactly in that vein of that era where just these weird villains. They didn't care. They need to put out a comic, just whatever came out. And
like
I was gonna say, even though I'm a little younger, I still have this affinity for that era of comics. There's just something about it. There was a magic there. Like, nobody was paying attention or something, and they just did whatever they wanted.
Nobody was writing for the, oh, we need 4 issues to make a trade, or every month didn't involve a crossover, or there was just, here's what's happening. There's an extending, overreaching, story, but most of the stuff is kind of one and done and whatever. And it was a lot more liberating, I think, than, you didn't have to remember. You didn't have to have a whole index to go, wait, so what's happening? You could just jump in and go, that was weird.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we said for a long time. And I think it's been coming back for a minute now, but comics were just fun back then. Like, they didn't take it seriously. They weren't trying to do this like overarching, like you said, this overarching story arc that's going to be 5 years long, and at the end you're going to realize, why your mother never loved you properly, or whatever their theme was. It was just Spider-Man's gonna fight a guy who also is a living fire hydrant.
It happens.
Okay, let's do it. Let's
I lived in New York. I lived in New York. That shit happens all the time. Fire hydrants just attack people. It's rough. They get mad at all the dogs, and then they come at you.
And I was gonna say, I can feel you with the Discord thing. I'm on multiple of those with different creators and everything, and I muted it just because I'm like, dude, I got like 800 things one day. I'm like, no, I work a day job, guys. Like,
Discord, it is impossible. Like, I could be talking about something to one of even in just the smaller Summit Comics Discord, I could be talking about, 2 of us are talking about, we want to do this or we want to do that. And sometime after lunch, I can't fucking find that anywhere. I'm like, I don't know what the hell we were talking about. So-and-so posted a link for where I have to put my, my completed script. I don't know where the hell that is. And they're like, we pinned it. I'm like, there's 47 channels. Which one did you pin it to? I can't find shit in here. I'm like, no wonder they named it Discord, because this is exactly what a Discord means according to the dictionary. It's loud, it's unruly, and it's impossible to follow.
Well, and I'm the guy who, if you text me, Sebastian, and I'm at work or something, you text me, I look at it, Sebastian wants me to come over later. Okay. And I put it away, and I'll answer you later. You do that in Discord, some of these channels, man, and it's gone. It's gone.
You can't. Like, the only things I can find in Discord is anybody who I've just messaged directly. Because if they posted it, if we posted anything in a thing, I'm like, it's gone forever. I'm like, oh, I should have downloaded that piece of art they posted where somebody drew the Cobalt Cricket. I was going to use that as a, in one of my pushes for getting for the Kickstarter. I'm like, and no, that piece is gone forever. The internet has swallowed it, like the Ark of the Covenant buried under sand or in that warehouse. It's gone.
So with you being kind of part of the opening salvo of Summit Comics, I'm interested to know what you guys thought going in, because you had the Pinnacle issue
Mhm.
that introduces your character among many others. And I know digital rewards have gone out, but the book has not been shipped yet. Was there any thought going in that like we might be heading into a buzzsaw, that people don't have the introduction, but we're gonna launch the series, at least on Kickstarter?
Yeah, there was a lot. Well, there was both a lot of thought and not so much thought. Um, we knew that we were going to be launching things before Pinnacle hit, but right now Pinnacle is at the printer. It's printed overseas, so that takes some time. But I believe Travis likes to do this thing where he orders, the big main order, but he also orders a faster, just ship me like 100. And I believe the first 100 are either on their way to him now, or I think they're on his way. He hasn't posted any pictures gloating of him going in between them, with one of those three faces he makes when he does a selfie. So I assume he doesn't have them yet, but they're on the way. So the book is going to be out before, Pinnacle will be out before Cobalt Cricket #1 hits. So people have time to read that. Not that it would make a major difference of, oh, I missed these 6 pages. I can't follow anything. It's like, but yeah, that book will be out before us. And then at first, we kind of fell into a groove we didn't think we were going to find. Because at first, it was kind of like we made rules for what you needed to be ready to launch. You need to have your script approved by editorial and finished. You need to have your first 5 pages of art drawn, inked, colored, and lettered. Because one, that proves you're already partway in, and you can use that for marketing and putting that in the Kickstarter to show it. And then, if you have all of that, then you can get on the list to launch, and then it's just a matter of checking. Because it really felt like it was going to be more of a free for all, and a lot of us were like, "Well, do we want to make a list or a spreadsheet?" And spreadsheet is like a trigger word for Travis. Travis had Travis likes to keep things in his head, and he has one of those like conspiracy murder boards of like, this is what's happening, and this is what I'm doing with Orange Cone, and this is what I'm doing with this other thing, and this is what I'm doing with Summit, and that's as organized as he wants. He has reluctantly accepted that some of us need a more concrete picture, or we feel like when you get when your ship sank in the middle of and you look, and in no direction can you see land, but it turns out land's actually just a few miles that way, but from where you are, you just can't see it over the swells. So we need that little direction. So yeah, at first it really seemed like it was going to be a big, scary, chaotic thing. Then some of us started getting the stuff together, and we were worried about, well, will we be competing against each other in Kickstarter? How's it going to work? But then we kind of overlap and we kind of cross connect. Like right now, Nate Schachter and Stan Yak have Wayfarer out on Kickstarter. And I'm in a good little wave, I think, because the main characters from the main books that, from the people who said, hey, who started the whole ball of maybe we could form a group and merge our heroes together. Those guys already have their first issue out, because a lot of them were out before Pinnacle, and they were like, hey, well, what if we just merge and say this is the same world? So like Noir and Upheaval and Granite all have a first issue already. But Nate and Stan have Wayfarer, which is kind of like the Odyssey in space. and we liked the idea of teaming up because my guy dresses in all blue. The main character from Wayfarer is blue. He's an alien, so he's got the blue skin. So we just became like the blue boys and ran with that, and that's kind of worked. And now uh, Devon's Trench, an alien trapped on Earth, is coming out, and I think he's really more of a light gray, but in my colorblind world, I can consider him blue. But he does have these bright blue eyes, so he's coming up next, and it's cool because our little wave really just shows like three very different aspects of the summit. We've got one thing taking place. This basically it's a man, an alien who's been abducted by other aliens, and is just trying to get home to his family in a very Greek epic kind of way. That's I believe a 4-issue mini, and then it'll we'll get his continuing adventures as they come. But so you got this one guy all the way off in the far reaches of space, filling out that kind of cosmic, giving us little hints at the cosmic aspect. We've got this alien in California who is he's kind of trapped on Earth, and he's been asleep for a while, but now he's up and realizing things are happening, and he's kind of it's like a Hellboy vibe. He's kind of like a big, gruff kind of like Hellboy noir. He's almost like a detective. He has the big trench coat, hence the name. Because comic books have taught us if you're big and monstrous and you wear a trench coat, you can walk the streets like Ben Grimm goes unmolested, except for Yancey Street. And then I've got this, this kind of underdog everyman who dresses like a bug in a little city in Florida that's for some reason filled with weird scientists. That was not my actual intent, but you're onto something when you're writing, and it's like, oh, none of this is what I had written in my outline. Apparently, there's a lot of mad scientists in Florida, which makes sense. If Florida had, access to this level of technology, yeah, it'd be like, the Florida man equivalent of Florida scientist. Like, well, I merged a man's DNA with a cricket and someone else with a lion. Why? What do you mean?
Math.
It said I could. No, but
So, for you and Cobalt Cricket, what does being in a shared universe mean for the character and for your story?
It's actually like at first I was worried that it might be more stressful in so much as, oh, do I have to keep track of all these moving parts? But it's actually kind of freeing because I don't have to create everything. If I need a thing, somebody's probably started something that couple of the mad scientists that I have are from an organization, and I can never remember the damn name. But Brian Wolf came up with this concept that he wants to introduce in a couple of his books, and he hasn't yet. And I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense for these people. I needed them to have like not a reason for doing what they're doing, but more like why would they even exist and be whatever. And he's got this organization that is for. It is neither a good nor evil organization. You can have people in there trying to better the world, and you can have people in there trying to take over the world, and you can have people in there who are more like, well, what would happen if I did this? Their actions might help somebody, but they might really mess things up. But they're not. They're just doing they're the scientists Jeff Goldblum got mad at in Jurassic Park. He was so busy and thinking whether or not you could do it. You never stop to ask whether or not you should do it. And that's some of the characters that I have who are just in the background, kind of curious to what's going on and just kind of tweaking it in different directions. More to take notes, like, oh, it could be like, oh, look at this. We did this, and everyone in this hospital is now disease free, or it could be, oh, we did this and 600 people died. fascinating. Neither affects them. They're very, well, what? We're just recording that. Like, we can't be good or evil. We're here for the data. And he had this organization, and I was able to steal from that. And then, if like, there's a group. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's called Vigil. And that came out of the mind of Daniel, who writes Vesper, and he has his own books. He's done like American Dream and a bunch of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like not quite Shield, but Shield-esque, and they're the ones who kind of keep an eye on whatever and interfere when they need to, and have all the files that like even you think your identity's secret. Yeah, well, there's a full dossier on you over at Vigil, and so there's stuff like that I don't have to worry about. If I need a thing, I just look in the chat and go, okay, I can tie it into this, or I can do that. Or even Travis and Brian's Upheaval takes place in Orlando, an actual place in Florida, versus my made-up Carl's Bay. And so they've already said that they've got some stories where they've kind of referenced the Cobalt Cricket, and I've done vice versa, because they're close enough that it. So being in a shared universe, the only real trick is just making sure, oh, I had this idea. Oh, that sounds exactly like so and so's. Okay, so let me scrap that or tweak that or whatever. But basically, you don't have to worry about pulling a full like J.R.R. Tolkien, where oh man, before I started writing The Hobbit, I came up with 12 languages and the histories of all these people and 3 different religions, and I can just go, oh well, somebody else made that. But we're all, by getting in on the ground floor, it's not like getting hired by Marvel or DC and trying to figure out, can I write this story without contradicting or repeating some of the 75 years of comics they've put out.
A lot of that's like 20, 25 years from now. It's a problem. Like,
right.
you read a lot of early Marvel comics, and it was there was just a newspaper in the background that said Fantastic Four. Oh, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four in the same universe. Look at that. There wasn't a ton of needing to do these big crossovers back then. That didn't happen until late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
So I like that idea, and I like the idea of you guys also, like, down the line being able to do one-shots where it's like Cobalt Cricket and Upheaval, team up. And it
right.
doesn't have to be anything super serious.
Right. It can just be they chased someone from Orlando to Carl's Bay or vice versa, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand, like, you guys are all working together. I've heard the story of how, and my audience has too, of how, like, Summit, when you create something, it's owned by Summit, and then there's some stuff that's owned by you, and so on and so on. But when you use something like Vigil, do you feel a need to talk to Daniel and be like, hey, Dan, do you mind if I, like, use Vigil for this? This is what I'm thinking.
Let me preface this one by saying first, Daniel, I love you. You never have to worry about talking to Daniel about Vigil, because that's what Daniel does. He talks about Vigil. So yeah, like, I like to talk to them just to make sure I'm not. Most of the time, we're very excited when anybody says, hey, I want to use just a one panel of the Cobalt Cricket doing something in the background here, or oh, I'd love to mention Upheaval or use somebody from Vigil or whatever. We're really kind of supportive of that, and that's another advantage to the shared universe that we've got. Is it might take me like 6 issues of Cobalt Cricket to get to some of the ideas that I have kind of in the background. But they seem more real if some of those ideas have already been hinted at, touched upon, or outright used in somebody else's book. Like, Daniel's got a lot of ideas for Vigil, and he has a very specific storyline that he's doing. So far, he hasn't, but other people's books have, like, Vigil is a big part of Neoglyph, the one that looks. It's one of my favorites art wise because it looks very much. I think it was Benjamin Morse. It has that like triangle era Superman art and like Spider-Man art, and I was automatically I was like, ooh, I like this. Um, but he starts out with Vigil, kind of coming after his guy. And yeah, we don't have problems with any of that. We talk to each other mostly to make sure, is this how you wanted it to go or is this not? And yeah, certain characters and certain things we create are specifically for Summit, but most of the stuff, because we have it built in, part of the Summit origin is this alien invasion called A-Day, in which one of our prime heroes goes off and she fights this alien, and it's an alien the size of a planet. So she kills it, and its goo drips down all, alien ichor, as we keep calling it, covers the earth, and that's what causes a whole lot of these, powers and calamities and whatever else we've got going on. But she is now trapped in a time loop where periodically, she and this alien will fight that same day over and over, like a superpowered Groundhog Day. And depending on how it goes, there are mini resets within the world. Not big things, like not a whole like Crisis on Infinite Earths level, whatever, but there can be little shifts. And we did that with two things in mind, and that is if someone like we're getting to a point where we're going to take new people in, new creators, new characters into Summit, and if you bring something in, there's a reason. We can just say, oh, well, was that always there? No, but in the latest reset, now it was, and that just flows in. Same thing where if
So, like, if my character, Capybara Man, I've already done 6 issues over here, but I want to bring him into Summit, that's how you would bring him in.
yes,
Yeah.
there's a further rule that says you can't have more issues of your book than we have of what. So, like right now, if you had one issue of Capybara Man, you could bring him in now. If you have 6, you'd have to wait till we had 6 core Summit books, so that this way we're not explaining. You don't end up with that New 52 problem where it's like, wait, he's only been active for 5 years, but he's on his 6th Robin. How the does that work? Child Services has not visited Bruce Wayne. But so that makes that easier flow, and it also works the opposite. If after this campaign, Hollywood comes to call it and says, hey, we'd like to do we'd like to stream the Cobalt Cricket on Prime, and some of the other guys are like, well, I don't want to tie my stuff into that. I had my own plans for this. I could use one of those resets as a reason for why Cobalt Cricket is suddenly no longer part of all of his So let's say I'm up to issue 5 at that point.
Mm-hmm.
All 5 issues will still have happened. They just won't have happened within. And then we have workarounds for trades for how, like, if Cobalt Cricket can still be used if he was in somebody else's book and they're going to make a trade of that. So you don't end up with like those, oh yeah, you can never get this one, here's a trade collecting all the Marvel Death's Head, but not this one because it had Doctor Who in it. Or this other one that had the Transformers because they don't have the rights to those. So out of all 23 issues of Death's Head, you can get 21 of them collected. To avoid that, we have we thought ahead on all the ways we could mess ourselves up, and we're pretty proactive about that. And by we, I mean the smarter people, not me.
Let's say you guys have all been reading comics a long time. You need a built-in retcon machine, like
Right. It's pretty much what we did. We were like, anything we need to explain. Oh man, the time reset.
Yeah. So for your book in particular, are we talking about limited series, ongoing? how's this
Um,
kind of going?
I'm hoping to do ongoing. Gambit is a tattoo artist by trade, so he's kind of feast or famine on when, I've had 3 months of no one wanting to do a tattoo, so I drew 48 pages this week. Or he's like, I've got 12 appointments, one of whom is going to come back 6 times because I'm doing like a full sleeve, whatever's going on in there. So it's weird with his schedule. He's lightning quick when he starts drawing, but the joke is that it might take him it might take him 3 days to do 30 pages, but it'll take him 3 weeks to find those 3 days.
Yeah.
So, and he does the art, and I mean, he does the pencils, he does the inks, and he does the colors. Um, Part because he tried doing less than that for a couple other things, and like most artists, he's like, I did some very like intricate little stuff here, and it's lost now. So he likes to do his way. Plus, when he's doing it, sometimes he knows, like, all right, there's a bunch of palm trees because it's Florida in the back of this. I don't need to draw those. I can just do those, straight in with the color later. So it saves him time on one end, and then and keeps his art pure. So yeah, so he's it's a matter of shifting that, but I have this planned as an ongoing. Um, as long as people care, which, as we discussed earlier, I really thought, I mean, I sat down with Travis at a Dunkin' Donuts because that's the only place you can talk to Travis by
Yeah.
law. And
Good writer, but terrible taste in coffee.
oh man, Travis, I didn't say that. I think all coffee's terrible. Um, but yeah, we sat down and I told him, I was like, I'm worried that I'm going to be the first campaign to fail in out of we've done like 6, and they were all like, oh, funded in 2 days, funded in a day, and I'm like, I'm worried I'm going to be the first one to fail. Initially, our editor-in-chief had told me, set your goal at 2,500, that'll be easy. And I panicked at the last minute, and I was like, I think I'm going to drop it down to 2 because I'd rather hit it and then try for the 2.5 than not. And Travis was like, yeah, I think you're right. Do it. Cut that down. You haven't done a Kickstarter. I did a Kickstarter once back, like when Kickstarter first started doing, comics and stuff, and everything in Kickstarter changed. And I had like a $1,000 goal for that. And at the last day, I got up to $1,047, like 2 hours before it ended. And I was very nervous. And then when I launched it, I literally at like 1:10, I hit launch at my house. My wife and I jumped in the car. We're on the Florida East Coast. We drove over to Tampa to see Florence and the Machine. Thanks to traffic, what should have been a 2.5-hour drive took 4 hours. And there's a restaurant right across from the amphitheater where we were going to see Florence and the Machine. We sat down to get something to eat. I took my phone out of my pocket. It was in my pocket for the whole drive. I sat it on the table, and it started exploding with people congratulating me on getting funded. And I was like, what? I was like, I really thought I was going to be up. The campaign ends on May 28th because that's my birthday. And I did that because I really thought for like all of next week, I was going to be, hey, you know what I want for my birthday? Everybody make this happen. Just, you don't have to pitch big, pledge big, pledge $1, blah, 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 whatever. And I really thought, and then instead a 4-hour car ride, I get out of the car and I'm funded. By the end of that first day, I was 150% funded. And right now I am less than $200 away from being at the $5,000 goal and our next stretch goal, which will get people those like we're doing some of those fake old timey postcards that do like the welcome to visit Carl's Bay, Florida,
Yeah.
like the old visit Miami, visit Orlando, where there's like pictures of scenes inside the letters and then whatever. And yeah, I really thought like I was even now, like people keep saying, oh well, you should be making the, and I keep getting upset, like, oh, somebody canceled and I dropped down $20, or I got no money to, and I'm like, I feel, how can I really feel bad about this? I'm like, I'm 200% funded. I really can't feel bad that today I only got one $5 backing. But to quote Anakin Skywalker, I want more, and I know that I shouldn't, you know?
Well, I think, I mean, you guys laid amazing groundwork for Summit, and that's a huge part of the success of each campaign moving forward. But with yours in particular, because I feel like yours kind of took off faster than everybody else's. Maybe that's just me looking on the outside looking
we
in.
we did break the record for Summit funding, our 4 hours. And like I said, I can't. People are like, what did you do? That was. I'm like, nothing. I got in the car. I had nothing to do with it.
Well, and I think what it is you've got a cool looking character, like a classic superhero design. You've got something that looks fun, which I think is a very important word when we're talking about the Cobalt Cricket. Like, it just looks fun, and the humor to it too. Like, it feels like with the pages you put in, there's just a certain amount of humor and quippiness to it that you're someone who gets superheroes to its core. Someone's read it for a long time, and I'd love to know who designed the character artistically. Was that Gambit, or did Brian pitch in on that? Because I think that's a huge part of your success here.
Oh yeah, this is it's a great, like, simple design. One of the things I was never a fan of is 800 belts, 40,000 pouches, or even worse, um, this recent thing, and I blame the New 52, even though I know other people have been, and the movies where they make the costumes more realistic, and then people try and draw. I don't want 400 seams on my costumes, that, like, okay, I get it. This looks more like how something like that would be made
Mhm.
functionally. But that's not, that doesn't look, that doesn't look appealing to me. And I feel like if I was Gambit and I said, hey, here's this costume, it's got 57, random lines in it. You have to draw it every page, for a 24 to 30 page book. I feel like him driving 2 towns over to murder me would be justified, Um,
Well,
so,
I think of the story. I think it was a GI Joe comic that Liefeld did, and people on the show know that I'm not a fan of Liefeld and I can't stand him. But they literally, somebody started counting the pockets that he put on the GI Joe. I think it was Snake Eyes on the pockets, and it was never the same. Like, because he just drew however many he could because that's all he can draw, and he doesn't do that well. But I never got that design philosophy either. Like, it's just simple is better. Like, look at Spider-Man. What was the best Spider-Man costume? It's when they drew a silhouette of black with a little spider in the middle. That's the best
yep.
Spider-Man costume.
Oh yeah. I remember as a kid, because I'd already knew in my head what Spider-Man looked like from cartoons. When I started reading the older ones, and they would draw like Ditko, and then even John Romita would draw those, like,
Webs.
webs under the
Yeah.
arm. I kind of hated those, especially since I'm like, you can't glide with them. They can't. It's just there to be like, oh, in case you forgot, I'm a spider,
He's a spider, everybody.
But then later, I loved it. Like, in retrospect, I was like, no, I miss now when, people draw spider. I'm like, they're supposed to be those there. I wasn't a fan of the Todd McFarlane webbing. He called it the spaghetti webbing, where, like, there's like strands going. I'm like, if I get artistically why it was cool, but little autistic me is just sitting there going, most of the 70s and 70s Spider-Man stories were him worrying about running out of, web fluid. I'm like, but then by the 80s, I'm like, what happened that he designed it so that, hey, I'm going to use more webbing making this one web than 70s me used all day, fighting, 400, mobsters and a guy with a flat head, So I'm like, this seems right. Yeah. I was like, this seems like either he's greatly upgraded his formula, or he just stopped caring. He's like, fuck it. I'm just going to, wow. And he also was always complaining about the money it took for him to make the web fluid, you know? So I'm like, I can't imagine unless he got a grant that he wants to do this spaghetti web all over. But for this costume, and I say this about Gambit a lot, because he is really good at this. Technically, I designed it. Like originally, Gambit was supposed to be work for hire. And I drew a sketch with what limited. There are only, I used to say two, but it's three. There are only three people on this planet who still make me draw. Like I have a degree, I went to school for this, and then I shifted and got more degrees in English. And the only people who make me draw, my mother, who desperately wants me to do a children's book. I'm sorry, I'm probably not going to. Adopt Allie Arnold, a friend of mine from forever, who she does children's books and cards. My friend Rick, who owns the local comic store, who puts me in there on artist days and has me do free sketches. Mostly I'm a pain in the ass. It's like making a wish with the monkey's paw. You tell me what you want, and I draw almost that, you know. I draw not quite what you wanted. And then Travis, who made me draw some stuff for, we have book plates that are going to go when we ship out the Pinnacle books. So I got 5 of them, and I drew sketches of 5 different characters. But other than that, I don't really draw, and there's a reason. Like I can, but I'm not going to. I don't have the. I have some talent and I have some skill. I don't really have the follow through to do it on the level that I should if I'm going to do this professionally. So I drew kind of I drew the mask. And then I drew like a turnaround of him because I wanted those wings that look like they, the like his. This was made from the turnarounds. Another friend of mine 3D printed this, painted it, and sent it to me. So this is made from Gambit's art. And what I really wanted to capture was the idea that it's not a full cape. His wings that his actual wings are under here and can come out, and that it's more like a carapace design, like on a cricket. And I wanted to make sure that, as I put it when I wrote to Gambit, I was like, the cricket little spike hairs on their legs, I'm like, think the ones Batman has on his gloves, but, put them on the legs instead. So I drew this thing, and I sent it to Gambit. And Gambit manages to somehow, and he's done this for a number of things, he somehow draws exactly what I drew, but 400 times. Like, it is the exact same thing, but it is not. Like, if you would never know the order that these were drawn in. If you looked at his and mine, you would not suspect that he looked at mine and took it to that professional level. You would look at it and think, oh, so you saw Gambit's picture and you tried to draw it on your own. That's cute. And I'm like, no, I drew this first. Gambit just made, and as soon as he sent it, I immediately told him, I replied like right there in the little chat where he sent it to me. I was like, I just messaged Travis these pictures, and I told him, you're not work for hire. You are a co-creator. This is now not just my character. This is me and you. And Gambit usually draws like he's an edgy tattoo artist, heavy metal listening Puerto Rican, and he likes to draw the dark stuff. So part of what made him want to jump on board with this is he's like, I think I'd like to draw something fun, instead of all the dark, serious, spooky that I do, and he's been having a ball drawing it, and you can see it in everything that he draws, and that's so important. Like if he ever says, "I'm not feeling this anymore," I'm going to tell him, all right, from now on the book will say, Piccione and Melendez, the Cobalt Cricket. But if your heart's not there, you're the captain has removed the no seatbelt sign, and you're free to move about the cabin, because a lot of the energy and excitement in this is like it is that art, it is that design, and it is just Gambit having a fun time drawing the nonsense that I put on paper.
Well, and his art, at least in these preview pages you have on the Kickstarter, encompasses what you said earlier of like this golden age comic, golden silver age comic, but with modern sensibilities. Like his art is that, at least in these pages. So I think he was the perfect choice to jump on board with this.
There was when he drew that first page, that splash page of um, Cobalt Cricket and Sandtrap fighting, and I was like, I just wrote. I was like, you understood the assignment. I'm like, I can see everything. There's a hint of Ramita. There's a hint of there's a hint of Ditko. I can see it, and then he shows me a page that he looked at for it's a completely different layout, but that he looked at for inspiration, and it's an old Spidey Spidey punching the Sandman, and he was like, yeah, I looked at this to kind of get the aesthetic, and I was like, I love you so much right now.
Yeah.
You know?
So behind the scenes, I always have like the Kickstarter page up, and I'm going up and down it to like as we're talking, and I went down to those pages again, and I've looked at this dozens of times over the past couple of weeks, and I'm just noticing that he has golf balls in his Sandtrap. He has golf balls in his arms as he's punching the Cobalt.
Best detail is there's a little thing I wasn't sure what it was. I'm like, is that like a hockey puck? And he's like, no, it's the upside down cup that they have in the hole.
Yeah.
One of those is like peeking out of him. But my favorite is there is a bent putter because somebody was stuck in the sand trap and just went, God damn it, and bent their putter and left it there. And and that's none of that this is what I mean by he is co-creator. We are equals on this. If you look at my script, nothing says, bent putter and,
Yeah.
golf ball. That's just Gambit going, okay, I got to.
There's no Alan Moore-esque script that has every single detail,
Right.
5 pages
Right.
deep for every panel. Yeah. No, it's amazing that he just got it. Like his art. I couldn't imagine anybody else doing this book. Like it's so perfectly done every way. And I love how when you get that style too, a lot of people and just a lot of artists in general have trouble with faces. Like I love everybody's loving Absolute Batman and the artist for it, whose name is escaping me as I'm talking, but love his art to death. I read East of West from day one. Like that, it's a great book. But the dude has like 4 faces, and he manages in these pages just to have different looks on different people throughout it, and I think that's another thing about his art that's just really cool.
Oh yeah, what he really likes about comic art is, like I said, he's a tattoo artist. So normally he has to. This is a man who's every day. I don't know how I couldn't do a job like that. Every day, his execution has to be perfect because he's drawing on a person, and you can't erase it. You can't go, oops, that line went too far, or you can't do the little I'm gonna do that fleshy art skeleton of here's like 5 to 7 head lengths of little circles, and because you can't cover that up later or erase it. He's got to draw it perfect from scratch every damn time.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a tattoo for my wife that it was a stylized Ouroboros, and it looks very much like the little spirally thing when your phone is buffering, but it's made out of a bunch of different, getting larger and more solid, just little straight lines, equally paced apart in a perfect circle. And I told him, I was like, that's incredible. And he's like, let me tell you, while I was doing it, that was the most stressful tattoo because everything was like mathematic. It had to be perfect. Yeah. And it's on my friend's wife. So I'm like, I can't fuck this up. And I'm like, that's amazing. So when he gets to do comic art, and he does a lot of it digitally, he does a lot of it on a drawing pad. Suddenly he can do things like, oh, let me change this line, or let me move the character over a little, or space this better, or I have an idea for what. Suddenly he gets to make changes that for anybody else would sound like, oh, that's the worst part. Oh, I got it all done, and then I had to move everything because it didn't work, or this part looked too crowded, or this line went too thick, or whatever. But he loves that because all day he's got to draw perfect on flesh with somebody, wincing and pulling their arm away or whatever. And so he likes being able to tweak it, change it, move it around. And like I said, he's known me forever. He knows that, like my favorite if I have a lot of favorite artists, but if you forced me to say one, it would be Kevin Maguire. And one of the things I love about Kevin Maguire is all those facial expressions of people being like, like he caught, like you were taking pictures and you didn't get that pose. They're all in the middle of, and he knows I like that kind of stuff, so he tries to do, to accommodate that with. He knows that I'm not looking for the Jim Lee of everybody standing around looking perfect and flexed. He knows I kind of prefer oh, you caught me at a bad angle, and
Yeah.
he does that, and it's great. It's great.
That's me when I'm editing the show, and my face is giant on this screen, making this goofy face.
Uh, I
So
can relate.
when you're kind of, I'm going to assume the cover came probably first, maybe last, but somewhere in the process, you're doing the first cover that he did. How much went into that cover? Because it has that iconic feel. Like, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your ass, be like, it's just like Amazing Fantasy 15. But, like, it has that iconic feel of, look at this new superhero. It's amazing. Like, I feel like you put this on the stands next to Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, it jumps out with the rest of them. Like, how much time and effort went into this, or did he just pump it out one day and you're like, holy
Um,
shit?
yes and no. Like I said, Gambit draws quickly when he has the time to draw. And what had come with that was at one point we were thinking, like Travis and the rest of the Summit execs had said, we're starting to farm stuff out. We're starting to put stuff out on Facebook, well before we had anything ready to go. But we're going to introduce creators. We're going to introduce artists. We're going to do whatever. And they said they wanted a mock cover. Like we would make a cover that maybe it would become something, maybe wouldn't. But so we'd have it in that cover format. And Jerome Gagnon, the third member of what I call Team Cricket, he's our letterer, and he does a lot of the design. He came up with that logo and a bunch of other stuff. And the three of us are constantly in just a Facebook Messenger, and nobody is just in anything. Like I can't say oh, Jerome just does the letters. No, he does the letters. He does the design. He pitches stuff. We all like the fun of it, and we all kind of pitch concepts. And hey, whether it's for in the book where he's thrown some villain ideas at me, or even just they're like children, only infinitely more productive. If I'm not online because I'm at work, the things they will do in the I came in, they made a meme out of that the old Spider-Man show, the 60s animated where Peter is pointing at the Spider-Man imposter, and then they made one around the movie time where they had the three different movie spider suits all pointing at each other. Jerome suggested to Gambit, he's like, oh, it'd be good. Make that meme, but because this was right after the CBR article came out, where one of the things was we talked about the characters I grew up on, so I kind of wanted to make a character like that. So yes, he is very Spider-Man-esque and Blue Beetle-esque. That's on purpose. That's me writing a love letter to these characters. And of course, CBR does that clickbaity thing of, they have to, Summit Comics has a new Cobalt Cricket book coming out. Is he the new Spider-Man? They're coming to compete with Marvel and DC. It's like, that's not, I'm competing with Marvel and DC in the same way that a house finch competes with a condor for space in the sky, they're both up there, but one is not really worried that the other's going to knock him out of the sky. You know what I'm saying?
I love that analogy, by the way.
Yeah. The other analogy I've used is the guy who comes in last, dead last out of a 1,000-person city marathon. He was also competing. He is a competitor. He just came in dead last, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. But so they had put out this article, and people weren't reading the article and were just going, "He looks like Blue Beetle," "He looks like Spider-Man," and it's like, yeah. So Jerome got this idea, and he had Gambit draw basically that meme, but it has uh, Blue Beetle, Spider-Man, and then Cobalt Cricket all pointing at each other. Like, oh, are we the same guy? And it's like, yes and no. Um, but all of us, we pitch, we're part of this, and we talked about tangents before we started filming, and I've already lost track of what I was supposed to be answering with this. but
the cover. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we were coming up with this mock cover. Gambit drew that. First, he drew it just as that Virgin sketch cover that we have on there with the same thing, just uncolored and no big logo and whatnot. First, he drew it as that and was like, "How's this? It looks like a behind the scenes." And they were like, "Yeah, but we want like something that looks like a real cover." So then Gambit took it, colored it, and Jerome put the letters on, and my oh so clever, cordial community Cobalt Cricket, and he designed the logo. We picked between a couple. I really liked the cricket replacing the letter I. That made me very happy. And that was all. That was him. Like I just, I think I drew something, and he said, "Well, that's big and weird and won't work for for spacing purposes." And as I've told him on a number of things, look, I'm just the writer. I suggest stupid things. You guys, as the art department, have to tell me why that would never work functionally, and then modify it to something practical. And then I ooh and ah over it, like, oh my god, that I didn't think of that. That's cool.
Especially it needs to fit on the page and look nice on a
Yeah,
t-shirt. Come on, man.
yeah. So Gambit colored it in, and that became the mock cover. And we loved. Like I'm colorblind. They had to me, it's pink, but apparently to the rest of the world, that is like a purple sunsetty sky in the background there. And I love that building because when I created Carl's Bay, I was like, it's in between Melbourne, which is where Gambit and I live, and Miami. I was like, think like a smaller Miami along the same coast, where it's like, because Florida is not great at doing real cities because we have hurricanes and we're built on water level sand, so it's hard to make all of those guys. So I'm like, parts of it are very city-ish, but parts of it are very Florida. And I think that building, I've passed 400 different versions of that building, every day in Florida. So I think he did great with that. And it was so good, and people reacted so well to it that I told them, I was like, look, you know how they told us we have to have 5 pages, at least I think 2 or 3 covers. And I'm like, well, we've already got our first cover. Because why waste this as a mock cover? Everybody seems to love it. This will be, and just that jumping pose and that facial expression where maybe he looks like he's, having fun. Maybe he looks like he has no idea what he's doing. I've gotten to, even today, I just got my 4th person who said it reminded them of Jason Liu's comic that he put out called the Pitiful Human Lizard, which is one of my favorite comics. So I was very happy to hear that. But we love that cover. It became perfect, and then from there we went with the original sketch he did and made that the Virgin cover. We did the all blue sketch cover, and then Derek Donovan, who's drawn everything from X-Men to Green Arrow to he drew the only version of Youngblood I liked. He's a friend of mine. He was a friend of Carl Moline, so we named Carl's Bay after. And I reached out to him about drawing the cover, and I told him, I was like, I really wanted to think of an iconic Blue Beetle cover, but I think me and maybe 7 other people would recognize, oh, that's clearly that issue of Blue Beetle. The rest of the world would be like, what's that? And I really wanted to go with an older Spider-Man to start off as my initial, but I'm like, everybody does the Amazing Fantasy, and everybody does that Spider-Man 300, with the circle. And I was like, I really just want all those crickets instead of spiders from the Spider-Man #1. So he drew that, and another friend of ours, Laura Martin, who's colored everything again from the X-Men to the Avengers to she back in Wildstorm, she colored two of my favorite books, Authority and Planetary. And she'd always wanted to work with, she'd never gotten to color anything of Derek's, and they've been friends for a while. So she was very happy to jump. So I got these two. Like I'm never going to be able to get, names again because I don't know anybody else. But I got the two of them, and that cover came out great. And I sat on that because I knew that for the CBR will do articles if they feel like they have something exclusive to put in the article. So I sat on that cover, and when they were sniffing around for what they could do for the next one of our books, I had that, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll do the Cobalt Cricket. We'll premiere that cover." And I think that cover is great. A lot of the pledge tiers that I've gotten on Kickstarter are for the combo where you get that Kickstarter exclusive cover and the T-shirt with that art on it. And yeah, Jerome did a great job there because even like on the actual Spider-Man book, at the bottom it says, Torment Part 1 of 5, and on ours it says supporter pledge 1 of many, which I hoped would be true at the time, and it turns out it is. And yeah, that's been very popular. But that original Gambit cover started as just we needed a filler, and Gambit can't half-ass things if he wanted to. Gambit's we just need becomes like well here's professional quality, and then once he colored it, like I'm not saying that the Cobalt Cricket will take off, but if he does, that will be one of the things they look back on as that's that iconic Cobalt Cricket #1.
Yeah.
Maybe your kid will be talking to somebody else's grandkid who's like, and then I, on a show like this going, yeah, and then I remembered the Cobalt Cricket #1, the original cover, and I did a homage to that. Gambit's been my favorite artist.
He's gonna tell a story. I went through my dad's comics and I found the Cobalt Cricket.
Yeah, he was using it as a coaster. It had a lot of coffee stains on it, but I liked the art.
I gotta say too, I think putting that logo or that cover on a T-shirt, cool idea. I mean, we all have like a comic cover T-shirt, but if I could throw an idea, and this goes for every Summit project, you guys can take this. I mean, I don't know, maybe throw me a free comic or something down the line.
I'm taking notes.
The corner box, man. First, I love that quarter boxes are back. I love it. I'm so happy. But you guys, whoever designed them, I'm assuming Jerome, designed them so perfectly that if you put that on a shirt, you could just swap the character and have like 8 shirts going on with just like Summit Comics and then, the bust of Cobalt Cricket or the bust of Upheaval or whoever. Mm-hmm. I think that corner boxes, and I've done this long enough. I feel like Jerome did it in the afternoon while he was on the crapper and like didn't think about it. But it looks like it was done so purposely and perfectly that I think that's your future T-shirt idea. Like you guys should definitely do something with those corner boxes because they're amazing design.
Yeah, Jerome and a couple of the others played around with those to get them, exactly like you said, to get them perfect where, they're reminiscent of old corner boxes, but they're not, derivative, and they work on the cover so that they're not, like obviously everything you put on the cover covers some part of the art, but that they become part of the design and that they really are, only time will tell if they become iconic or not, but they really are essential to establishing what we're doing and giving it that unified feel of all of these corner boxes have a different person in them, but the layout is basically the same and matches up and makes it, really puts the shared in our shared universe.
Yeah. And the merchandising is endless. Like perfect sticker, perfect T-shirt. Mm-hmm. When you do the trade, those little magnetic bookmarks you can get at Barnes & Noble? Perfect. Like,
that is just good.
Yeah, it's such a good design, and it just works so well in many different ways. And it actually is frustrating for me from the outside looking in. Not just you guys, Marvel, DC, everybody. Like, your corner boxes are so cool. Use them. Like, I'll buy shit with a corner box on it. Like, it's so cool. Right? So
most of everybody at Summit is going to eat this up. Travis is going to want to fight me and you because Travis says, I hate merchandise. I hate merchandising. We make comics. Travis is mad that I have this. And I'm like, this isn't merchandise. This is a friend of mine made this. He printed it, he painted it, and he sent it to me. A friend I hadn't seen in 20 years, but I didn't know has a business where he does 3D printing. And when he saw my thing, he's like, I'm making this. He made two. He painted this and sent it to me, and then he sent an unpainted one at Gambit's request, because Gambit's like, well, I'm an artist, I want to paint it myself. So Gambit has one that he's eventually gonna, paint up and whatever. And
Listen.
Travis is like, I hate that you guys have those. Now everybody's gonna want them, and I'm like, well, it's great for the practicality wise. This is great for artist turnarounds. Like if somebody wants to know, oh, what am I drawing? I can just literally show them this and be like, it's this,
It's also great for this right here. Like, you can hold up, like, look at this thing. Yeah, it's cool. But I know Travis listens, so listen. I'll be down in Florida sometime in the next couple of years. So my parents live down there part time. I'll be down there. My first stop when I'm down there is apparently to find Gambit, because I gotta get a tattoo from the guy who's drawing Cobalt Cricket. But two is we're gonna schedule a fight, and there's got to be an octagon somewhere where me and Travis can fight. Because, dude, you love merchandising. I've seen your room. There's more
yeah, he's
Magneto
got his
shit
Magneto
in that room.
shrine.
Yeah. So shut up. You love merchandising.
He loves buying merchandise. He wants all of us to focus on on the books. But I think some of this generates excitement. Like people
Dude.
went for the. I was like, I know when I pledge on a Kickstarter, if they've got a T-shirt tier, I usually go for that, even if it's something I've never heard of. I like the shirts. And yeah, a lot of people have gone for the T-shirt combo, which I thought maybe I'm like, all right, maybe I'll end up getting a couple of these, but a lot of people really like it, and it's that homage cover and just the T-shirt. So yeah, so I'm pretty excited about it, and as I said, I really thought that right now I would be on your show going, please, anyone listening, pledge $1. I've got like 10 days left and I need to get to 2,000. And instead I'm like, if I can break that 5,000 and be able to put out the Carl's Bay and Moline County postcards, I would love that, because it's honoring my friend Carl Moline, who I named the city of. A lot of things in my city are named. I know too many people who are not with us anymore. So I have, sometimes somebody will be like, oh, you should name something after me. I'm like, you don't want that. That's everything in my city is named post-mortem. You don't want me to name something after you. And I hope I never have to.
Exactly. So, yeah, my advice is, focus on the story, focus on the comic. It's, you got something cool here, and you all got a lot of you have something cool. I have to watch backing your projects, because I am just excited about all of them as the cat comes in finally. And but don't listen to Travis. Travis doesn't know anything. Merchandise the fuck out of this, man. Like, I want to buy this stuff. So even if I just make it for me,
Okay.
just make it for me. It's fine. But you've been super generous with your time. We should probably wrap up. So I just want to know, before we do, is there anything else you want to say about the Cobalt Cricket to the people out there to maybe entice them to back it today?
Just that I'm trying really hard. You can decide. Feel free. We're going to have a contest when the first issue drops to name a letters page. I want to do a letters page where you can write and tell me either that I love this, you should do merchandising, or I hate this, it looks like Blue Beetle. Whatever you want to tell me. Hopefully somewhere in the middle where it's a little more helpful. But I'm really trying to walk that line where the comics are fun. And obviously some funny and silly things happen, but they're still serious. Like, this isn't a send up. This isn't a satire. I'm not, mocking things or taking things to, any more ridiculous of an extreme as they were in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Cause one of the things I liked, I always described the Ted Kord Blue Beetle as, he's like Batman without the emotional baggage. He's got no powers. He's got money. He's a self-made man, but and even Spider-Man, where most of the time Spidey's kind of holding back, and you don't think of Spidey as the biggest, and the strongest until Spidey has to do something like beat the crap out of Firelord, one of the former heralds of Galactus, who's as strong as the Silver Surfer, and Spidey beats the crap out of him because he showed up wrecking stuff in Manhattan while Peter Parker was having like a really crappy couple of days. And I'm going for that kind of feel, like this underdog everyman who um, does what he can. And I like to say, well, with a little hand flow here, of he's got the proportional speed, strength, and agility of a cricket. And if you think that sounds underwhelming, it's because it is. And he knows this. Like, he's self aware of the fact that he's not the Hulk. He's not like Wolverine. He's definitely not Superman. There's a line in Pinnacle where we reference the famous Batman origin moment where this cheesy villain that he's fighting says, why is it always you that gets me? And he goes, because, what do you think you deserve granite? And he goes, you're not that big a deal. And he goes, oh, this from a man dressed like a cricket. He goes, I know. Criminals will never be cowardly or superstitious enough to be afraid of me, but I'm working with the cards I was dealt. And he just wants to make the world a better place, and it's not his fault that his skills are basically jumping and vibrating his wings till they chirp. So um, he works with what he's got. So it is fun, and he is, of course, one of those who runs his mouth when he gets into situations that are over his head, which is almost every situation he's in. But it's not like, I wouldn't describe it as a comedy book. It's not like I loved the Justice League that became Justice League International, but even I know that past around issue 20, it started becoming more about the gags and less about anything, and kind of started to fall in on itself. And I'm working really hard to not be that. I'm trying to be that balance. Like, even now in modern comics, Spidey is more of like the other heroes all roll their eyes, and Spidey is like, oh, there he goes, always talking, always being a jerk, always making a joke. Whereas it started as, well, he was a high school kid and he's fighting a giant freaking lizard and a brilliant scientist with metal arms. Yeah, of course you're gonna you make those jokes to keep yourself from going nuts and realizing what you're up against. So I'm trying to go more for that. And, if you're looking at it and thinking, well, that looks silly, to an extent, you're right, but it's not a silly book. It is a traditional superhero book. It's just, it's just not, dark and angsty and, gritty realistic. I don't know how realistic, you can be as a superhero, but, they like to go for that. And mine is not, but it's not a complete joke, but it is, it is a fun superhero adventure.
Yeah, fun being the key word. And it sounds like from our conversation pre and post recording that you're much like me. But do you do much social media? Do you want to have anyone follow you anywhere? Like, where are you
Um,
at with that?
Mostly I'm old, so mostly I'm on Facebook. Just under Sebastian F. Piccione. The F for Frank is important, because if you look up Sebastian Piccione without that F, you will be friends with my father, and I don't know how exciting that is for either of you. Um, but yeah, I'm on Facebook a lot. I'm starting to get the hang of Instagram. I'm not very good at it, but I like putting little songs to things. That makes me happy. But I don't know how to use it in a way that, like on Facebook, I can post, here's a picture of the Cobalt Cricket, here's a link to the Kickstarter. On Instagram, I'm like, here's the Cobalt Cricket, here's a song, or just crickets chirping in the background. I have no idea how to get you from here back to the thing. So hopefully you find me somewhere else and find that link, because I can't do this on my own. And I do X and Blue Sky and um, whatever the little at symbol is, Threads or something. I don't know. I'm not good at most of them, but if you want to find me, go to Facebook.
So I guess I'll put a link in the show notes, everybody. Check out the show notes down below because you'll see the link to, most importantly, the Kickstarter where you can go back this awesome project. And then a link to Sebastian's Facebook page so you can go follow him there so you can keep up for when we get to Cobalt Cricket 100. You'll know it's coming out.
So you can go tell me it looks like Blue Beetle.
That'll be a hashtag for the show. Hashtag it looks like Blue Beetle.
Hashtag derivative.
But Sebastian, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you about this book and just about everything in general. We'll definitely have to do it again in the future, but not that you need it, but best of luck with the campaign moving forward, man. And I look forward to future conversations.
All right, I look forward to it as well. I'll get working on those shirts. You're already rocking the summit. I guess we can get you some corner boxes.